Action Comics 1082, John Ridley writing with INAKI Miranda on the art. So we're back to our 3-issue arcs with rotating teams for Action Comics. And in that way, I just give Dan Slott Action Comics, apparently, so we're still doing this on Action. So, fair enough. We will dive in. It's an interesting first issue, because it's funny, because like a few pages in, like some rumblings happening. It already TG'd Major Disaster was going to be the villain, or the maybe not villain's maybe not the right word given the tone of where the story
antagonist.
goes. Yeah. But so it teases some civilians. Earthquake seems to happen, and then it's clear, oh no, it's actually Major Disaster. And Superman shows up, and I remember on that very first couple of pages with Superman, I went, man, the artist is drawing him really kind of like mean and angry looking. That was a bit off. But no, to be fair, that's the point. Within a few pages of that, characters start commenting on the fact that Superman kind of looked out of character, that he looks angry, he's pissed. Like the cops were noticing this. Like Lois obviously notices this and is asking Clark on the couch, like, why are you so upset about this? What's got to you? And that's kind of where the issue goes into, is that it basically goes into like a very old reference from Action number 700 something.
783.
There you go, Matt's the machine.
Well, I only know that because that was before I was reading comics. It's from 2001. Right? Okay. So I went back, look, and it's around that, I believe Joe Kelly was writing. So it's around the time of Truth, Justice, or what's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way. So there was a point where they were using Superman to tell these kind of stories of, the greater going-ons in the world. And so I'm not surprised that's where John Ridley's taking this, It feels a little bit more of a grounded kind of story.
Which makes sense, I think, from John Ridley. I think he likes to write more grounded stories that tackle subjects. And this feels like it's, Clark's upset because he thought he'd turned Major Disaster. Major Disaster had been convinced to turn over a new leaf, and he's upset that he's now robbing a bank. And like when he goes to see Major Disaster as Clark Kent at the prison, he does seem like very regretful about what he's doing. Almost like it feels like someone else has forced him into it, but he's not willing to admit it.
Or that he's a victim of his circumstances, and like he didn't want to do it, but he felt that was his only choice. There's like a desperation to him.
Yeah. And on those pages where Superman's coming in and like stopping the rubble from hitting people before he finally gets to Major Disaster, you see like an arm sticking out from underneath some rubble. One person has been killed as a result of what's happened here. And I like how quiet those pages are. There's not a lot of like narration, not a lot of dialogue. In fact, the book kind of goes out of its way to not give Superman narration.
Yeah.
It's only dialogue he has with other characters. It never like has him speak what he's feeling inside his head. It kind of keeps him at a little bit of an arm's distance, which makes sense because you've got characters saying, oh, Superman looks pissed. That's out of character for it. I thought it was going to kill Major Disaster. That's weird. And the first words, right, when he gets there, is him yelling "you," and then Disaster, and Disaster's all in a red font, and it's bigger, So it really drives home that the quiet there, and that's what breaks it. Yeah, and it's keeping you at an arm's length so that we're left wondering why Superman's acting and thinking the way he is and what he's doing. And he's really struggling. And Lois like brings up other people that he's kind of like turned over a new leaf with, and it's like, yeah, but Atomic Skull kind of went back to being a bad guy, and this other character went back to being a bad guy, and it feels like he's just starting to feel a bit helpless because he's not actually convinced people to change. But he does go to see Mighty Bruce. I'm not going to pretend I remember who Mighty Bruce is.
No, so I did some digging, of course, and he was during that art or during that story from 783 from Action Comics. He was one of the guys that got out with Major Disaster. He's just a dude. He just hangs out with him, and that's why he gave him that name, the Mighty Bruce. And there was like a gang of them that got together, and he's the one that's still friends, I guess, with Major Disaster. And so he's almost like a character reference here.
Yeah, because Clark's asking him because he goes to him as Clark, not as Superman. He's doing like a interview because he's writing a story. And Major Bruce Mighty Bruce, sorry, points out that you're looking for like details to write about to do some sort of human interest story or whatever, but like I think he's just a bit he's just human. I think that's the thing. Clark keeps looking for like, oh, what triggered him to do this? There must be some answer, and it just kind of sounds like, oh no, he's ran out of money. He's like putting on a brave face around us because I've seen him a few weeks ago and he seemed fine, but he's down in his luck. He's in a rough place. He doesn't know what to do, and like that's almost like the scariest explanation, perhaps, to Clark, is that there is no easy to fix solution that could have been addressed. Like he just keeps sliding down into the abyss of like
because Superman wants to see the best in everybody, right? And so if he felt like he helped him find the best part of him, why would he slide back? That doesn't make sense to him. You know, you're already on the up and up. Why would you go back? And so him wanting to find this bigger cause other than like some people just suck, you know, and he won't accept it.
Yeah, it's not even just that some people suck per se. It's more that some people just have harsher circumstances. Because he goes to see Aubrey Sparks and like asks her about stuff, and you know she kind of like pulls Clark up a little bit for saying, you know, like some of us with superpowers, it's just a constant temptation to use them to solve all the problems we're not supposed to use them to solve, right? So, like heroes go around using them to save people and get looked at very highly for it. But for a lot of people with superpowers who have like one power, it's just this like kind of almost like an addiction thing, like it was a crutch or like a gambling problem where I can just use that to like solve all my debt issues. I can just use that to rob a bank. I can just use that to do this. And just kind of like, hey, this is like a struggle that I've dealt with my whole life, and it's probably something that Major Disasters kind of had this temptation there his whole life. So I thought it was hitting some interesting points, and I'm kind of really curious to see where Ridley goes with this story. The ending does kind of come out of nowhere, which is some masked thug comes up, seemingly to mug Clark, and Clark just gets annoyed and says, oh, this guy's stupid. But then the guy hits him in the face with his baton, and there's like a bit of I guess I'll call it like a magic like spark comes off of it. It was sort of like a purple glow to it. There's
a purplish like energy that's surrounding the baton. Yeah, you know.
But
so
it seems to work though, because it actually hurts Superman, and he goes down and he's got like a cut in his head, and he's like on the floor like coughing up blood, or maybe not even coughing, just like dripping blood.
Yeah, because he gets whacked in the face. But yeah, he's on the phone with Lois at the time, you know, and it almost takes him by surprise, right? Because he's just like, I'm Superman. It's not going to do anything. So curious to see how this plays into everything.
Yeah, because I thought when he was sort of like pulling his glasses down a little bit, I thought he was going to use his heat vision to just, you know, heat up the baton to make the attacker drop it. And then, of course, you just see like the phone and the glasses flying, and the person runs off. And presumably this person knows that he's Superman, just because they were prepared and don't see, you know, there's no reaction to, oh, the glasses are off, that's Superman. He just runs off without caring. And I say we really don't know. I mean, there's nothing to go on.
Yeah.
With the identity of the person.
Also, the look of shock on Clark's face on that last page on the top. You know, I think that's some really good part on the art.
Yeah. I mean, I do think out of all these 3-issue arcs that we've had, this is probably the one that's felt the most interesting from like it feels like Ridley's got something to say with this story, and we're going somewhere with it. Now, will I find that satisfying? I don't know until we get to, you know, the end of the story, but I'm intrigued for sure right now, and the art's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's some wonky parts on the art, but other than that, like it looks, I feel like Superman should, like the way that he is a Superman versus Clark. I really appreciate. It almost looks like Clark's not trying to take up as much space. So I always love when artists draw kind of his shoulders forward, and he's kind of, you know, his body language isn't as confident, and that's full here because I mean, this is mainly a Clark Kent book, right? Like Superman shows up at the beginning to face down Major Disaster, but the rest of him, he's Clark Kent.
Yeah, well, I don't really bother spending much time, you know, making that distinction, but yeah, I guess you're right.
So,
yeah, it's doing some interesting stuff, and I'm intrigued by what it's going to say. I mean, I think the art is like not out of this world, but I think the layouts are pretty good. The fight, or I say the fight, the
attack.
well, even the attack, but they're going around and getting all the rubble and like saving people, you know, until and then the sort of standoff with because there's no actual fight between them, because basically, I mean, Disaster just surrenders, and that's part of what made me think that this is like, you know, he immediately surrenders. He doesn't even try to fight or get away, which makes me think either like whoever's made him do this, if someone has made him do it, this is part of what he's been told to do, is to like turn himself in immediately, or maybe he saw that he killed someone and just wants to turn himself in, you know, and that's kind of powerful in its own right. So I think, you know, those options are pretty good.
So Major Disaster, his powers involve probability, right? And he has a gambling problem. I wonder if there's more to it than, you know, right? There's more to that.
Yeah.
At play here, you know, and that's what leads him into this. But yeah, very, very curious. I'm definitely hooked going forward to see where this goes.
Yeah. And it being a tight 3-issue thing is also kind of cool.
Especially after 12 of Wade, you know.
Yes.
You know, it's nice, refreshing that we'll get 3 over a 3-month period.
The funny thing with Wade's book, though, is that it had 12 issues, but also felt like it was rushing through a lot of things. Like I feel like I should almost critique, like you know, some people say, oh, DC should have given him more issues, but I also feel like as a writer, 12 issues is still plenty to work with. He should have paced his story out appropriately for that.
I mean, yeah, that's two trades, you know, back in the day. Most trades were 6 issues, right?
Yeah,
that's more than enough to tell a story.
Yeah, so, should have maybe taken a few elements out so that things didn't feel as rushed. Yeah, all right, we give an action.
I'm gonna give this a solid 7.
I am going higher than that. I think I'm engaged in what's happening. Like, I think it taking a very different tact from all the other Superman books I'm reading is very nice. So, I guess they're 8 for me. I think I'm intrigued enough that I'm enjoying where it's going. I'm enjoying that Clark's struggling with something, right? And it's not like a fight. He's struggling with just a human decision that he doesn't understand. I think that's quite compelling. So, yeah, 10 for me.